Hi, Crystal. Thanks for joining me, friend.
Hello. Good to see you, friend. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Uh, so I'd love to start by asking you the question I ask everyone, which is about your life and what you've been through so far, and letting that be kind of a container for the specific topics that we'll dive into.
God.
Uh, feel free to share whatever you like at whatever length you like. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I've been actually thinking a lot about like life narratives recently and like because I feel like I'm good at like framing the narrative of like vignettes and like moments, but like framing my entire life story is like very difficult. Like I have no idea what I put as a Wikipedia blurb or anything. Um, yeah, I guess I'm Chinese American. I was born in the United States. I was born in Hartford, Connecticut, because my parents immigrated from China to Connecticut when they were in grad school. And so they were at UConn when I was born. And then when I was three, we moved to Oregon, where my dad did his PhD at Oregon State. And then after that, got a job at Intel. So I basically grew up in the Portland, Oregon suburbs. And yeah, the thing about Portland is it's a blank slate of a place, I feel like. Like there's no monoculture except for like chilling and like liking nature. That's Pacific Northwestern, and it's rainy, but pretty temperate. And I think that in some ways, like I was way too intense for a place like that growing up, but there's also a lot of parts of me that are very like non-judgmental of other people that I think were influenced by the geography of how I grew up. But yeah, and then I went to a high achieving high school, did a bunch of AP classes, decided I hate tech, which was kind of like the cult. Like my high school basically really encouraged people to like consider pursuing computer science back in the like mid 2010, early 2010s. And I was like, I don't want to do that because I want to be a writer. And I was like, I need to make money doing that. So I went to journalism school in Missouri, which was like the best public school to go to journalism for, University of Missouri. And yeah, so I was studying to become a journalist, which was a huge mistake. But, I was like, I want to be a writer. So the way to like actually make money and find success doing that is to take this path. But I graduated into Trump era number one and then like the pandemic and like just a bunch of other things that made the industry I chose like partially collapse. And also I actually like experienced death at an early age where like my fr best friend from high school actually passed away right when I was graduating college. So yeah, this is a very intense life story, sorry, but you asked. Like the thing is these like events, which was basically giving up something that I was like really, really libidinally invested in at an early age when I was like 21, and also like having like pretty much like the person who like really helped re-parentify me and help me believe in myself pass away really suddenly. Both of these events really shaped my psyche and what I'm about today. So today, I guess, uh, I'm like I'm like super interested in like psychoanalysis and like the esoteric arts. Like I've been studying tarot for like over 10 years and astrology also for that long. I was really into like the origins of Myers-Briggs, which were like the theory of the cognitive functions as pioneered by Carl Jung. I live in New York now, but after graduation, I did decide to move to Los Angeles for 5 years and just make a life there. And I got super into community building when I was there. I'm super into community building right now as well. And I think my life's work is to become like a secular pastor and bring like spiritual meaning to like people. And I do want to pursue writing. My goal this year is to write a fictional novel and also like an anthology of essays. And I also plan to leave New York by the end of the year and move to the Bay Area, so return to California. But yeah, yeah, I guess like how other people see me or think about me is I'm really passionate about like justice and like bringing people together and like narratives of how we see the world. And I know a lot of people, I have a lot of friends, but I do everything in service of the fact that I grew up pretty socially awkward and like really wanted to learn how to like have a good heart, but like using my intuition and also like balancing like, the demands of logic, figure out how to connect with people. So I find myself in the teapot community, having these philosophical like conversations and such pretty often. So yeah, I think that's basically it.
What were you like as a kid?
I was extremely, extremely quiet. I think people would have thought I was introverted. I was very like, I didn't talk a lot actually. Like I had a lot going on, but like I did not connect easily with people. I was very like stuck in my head, in my inner world. I used to draw a lot, which is funny because I don't do that anymore, but I want to get more into that this year. I read a lot. Like I would read like 2 books a week, which was very fast. Like the little like YA novels. Um, I loved writing, so in my spare time, I would like write like all the time. And I also like would make up stories about the people around me because I was never talking to anyone, so I would just like imagine what their inner worlds were like, imagine about what their futures were going to be like. Um, yeah, I would get yelled at by my mom for like the smallest things constantly, so I just had this perception that I was like a bad kid. But I also coped with that by getting super into like Christianity and religion to where I was like pretending Jesus was like my imaginary friend. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. But like, yeah, I would read the Bible a lot because I felt very like comforted by the idea that like I don't think anyone on this earth really loves me except for God. So I guess I was pretty like devout, but I also was skeptical of institutions because I was like, these institutions aren't holding my mom accountable for being mean to me, or the boys at school are mean to me and no one's doing anything. So the only person I can trust is God. So like, I don't know. I had like a chip on my shoulder from a young age, but I also was like, yeah, very curious about the nature of the world and the nature of like how to like have your comeback story, your hero's journey. I super resonated with the story of Joseph from the Bible because I was like, oh my God, even though he went through all this bad shit, in the end, Joseph was actually goated because he like grew up like, had his little rise to power, became like Pharaoh's right-hand man, and then like his brothers come back and like, oh my God, it's our brother who he sold into slavery. And he's like, I forgive you, because that's the best revenge. And I was like, that's like a great story. In fact, if this kind of thing happens in real life, then it doesn't even matter how pathetic I feel right now. I will somehow make my way out of like spiritual poverty at like age 9 or some shit. And like become better because I was like really convinced that I was like worse than everyone for like most of my like childhood. So I was like pretty emo as well. So yeah.
What impact did your friend that passed away have on you while she was alive?
He.
He.
Yeah, so basically there's this like anime I've seen recently on Twitter circulating where like this guy at school like he's like no one knows his first name, they only know his last name, and he's like basically known for being extremely goated. Like he like will get like bullied by people, but like completely dodge all their tricks or whatever. And he's like always just cool maxing. And that was my friend Asif. Like he was extremely like good at school. He like went to like university on a full ride. He became a manager at Microsoft at age 23. Um, but also like we were very like a golden retriever, black cat vibe. Back then I was like kind of like always masking, kind of like I'm so peppy and bubbly, but I'm actually really emo. And he was like the only person that like felt like listening to me basically and like kind of like Socratically refuting all of my like ideas about the world and like my fixation on like my grades and like what people thought of me. So he was like the first person to like make me feel like I had value outside of what people said or did, and like that was really valuable when I was like 16 and like really insecure. Um, so I think, yeah, when I say he like was really vital in like re-parenting me, I think it was mostly like I didn't have a sense of ego or like pride in like what I was actually good at. Because like my mom was extremely hypercritical and like didn't think there was any point in praising me. but he like would like point out my strengths, but in a really like matter-of-fact way that felt like wise, but also like helpful because like I could like sit with it. Um, so yeah, a very powerful like formative friend. Like not necessarily like, oh, like the friend that like you play video games with every day. More like a friend I had like deep conversations with that like made me see what life could be like if I embraced like a different perspective. And yeah, we like did like late night McDonald's runs and went to like Abercrombie and Fitch together, but like yeah, it was nice.
Hmm. Hmm. How does it feel to talk about him now?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because he died in 2016, so this year will be the 10-year anniversary. Mm. And also, I found out about his death when I was in New York. So I wasn't living here yet, so it is interesting to like go to that specific part of town where I got the call because I still kind of feel weird sometimes when I walk by. And I feel like with talking about him, I feel like I'm trying to like float above the like grief that still exists. Because like there's just like so much I wish I could say to him, like about like how my life turned out and how proud of me he'd be and how I can still like hear his voice when we like talk. I don't know. Um, and I guess I feel like a curiosity as to like what's he doing now? Like what's the afterlife like? Like he died like literally like right after Trump got elected and like the last movie he saw was Doctor Strange and the last words he wrote were about the movie being mid on Facebook Messenger because they found him the next day because he kind of died really suddenly and no one knows why, but yeah, I just have all these like unresolved questions and like I'm still really sad about it, but I guess I'm also just kind of like feeling a sense of pride that I think like that whole experience and like the wisdom he's given me has like really defined that my life maybe just turned out better, even though like, I made a lot of hard sacrifices. But yeah, like after he died, I was like after he died, basically I had no community around me because I was interning in DC for the semester. And that like that was hard because like I like flew home and then I flew back to DC to like finish my internship and I was like, holy shit, like I don't know a single person here that can like help me grieve. And everyone I know is like so far away. And I also realized I don't want to keep living my life as if I'm waiting for a chance for it to start. Like I felt like I already knew at the time that being a newspaper reporter, which is what I majored in, was like not really the way to go. Like deep down I kind of knew that. I figured like it'll eventually be worth it once I like make it to like a big magazine. But then I was like, wait, like what if I died really suddenly, just like also after like waiting for my life to start? Or like what if someone else I know dies and like I can't even take time to breathe because breaking news is more important than like my own life. And so like I feel like his death really catalyzed like series of realizations and like a reason and motivation to like improve my like circumstance and like break out of like this kind of propagandic assumption that like my career is all I have. Um, so I guess talking about him now when it's been like almost 10 years, it's really like impressive, I guess, how different I am from the person I was back then. And yeah, if that hadn't happened, I really don't think I would be able to say I'm like not like as depressive or like suffering from like, mental illness, chronic mental illness now. So, yeah, I guess like I'm trying to like see it as like a narrative event to maybe cope with how it still hurts. But yeah, I think you just get better at living with grief. And I don't even know what it's going to be like when like more of my loved ones die eventually. But it's something I certainly think about more day to day. So even talking about it, it's like I don't know. Like it's like it's just kind of like, well, it's always haunting me. So talking about it is just making it haunt everyone else too, I guess.
Hmm. If your friend could see you now and hear about your life and listen to you talk about what you've gone through and what you've learned, what do you think he might reflect about how he's seen you change.
Ooh, I'm no longer insecure that I'm not smart because that was like the flagship thing I used to be really concerned about. I used to feel like because like people back in high school used to kind of bully me and call me stupid, like
Hmm.
and like illegible. So I was really insecure about that, and he'd be really impressed that I can hang out with all these people that definitely did high school debate and definitely like to spend time arguing with people, especially women on the internet. Yeah. I think he would really like be proud of me and be kind of like, I don't know. I think he'd also be like kind of dismissive slash like amused that I spend all my time with these people that I like sometimes don't respect slash like want to deal with when they're being difficult. Um, like he would be like, I would never do that, but like good for you, Queen. Like, and I think he would really like all of my friends if he ever met them. Now. Like they're all the kinds of people that he would like find like an interest in talking to. I think yeah, I think yeah, I don't know. Like I'm searching for like would he be disappointed about anything? And I'm like no, he really wasn't that kind of guy. He was actually very hard on people. He was very like tough love. Like he would say things very matter-of-factly and straightforwardly. He was very mature for his age. And everyone was always like I remember his parents were joking that he would sometimes be the adult for them. So when they lost him, it was very difficult. And yeah, I don't know. I guess I think he would be impressed with how hard I've worked to prioritize healing myself and trying to like be a more secure person so I can get what I want. And I think he maybe he'd be surprised by how much his like simple day-to-day ways of being have impacted me, honestly.
Hmm. It's sweet to hear you reflect about a friend that was so important to you and that you have this, it's really clear that you have this intimate connection with him as someone that was meaningful in your life and is close to you even though he's passed. It's sweet to hear
Mhm.
about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't I didn't realize that like when you were like, tell me about like your life story, I'd be like, so my dead friend. But I'm just like, I don't know, like I've kept meticulous track of like every single moment that's happened to me in the past like 31 years, because I'm turning 31 soon. And that's where I'm like, okay, well, I guess I should try to focus on like the things that have shaped me as a character. And I think that 10 years later, 2016 really was like the year that I like had the most canon events happen to me and was the year that like had changed me the most psychologically. I remember for a long time it was like the best year of my life as I look back. And in some ways I still feel that way, which is crazy because it was 10 years ago.
Hmm. Hmm. What made it such a good year for you?
Well, notably, it was I didn't have any situationships or any crushes or any love interests giving me trouble. I was long distance with a friend I did not really want to be friends with anymore, honestly. Like, and I felt less suffocated by the whole thing. And I got to intern in two cool places, Indianapolis and DC, um, during the first Trump election where he got elected. So I got to like also explore like the East Coast during that time. Like I started going to New York more and I knew people there. Um, and I just felt like the world was like my oyster, man. Like it was my first semester senior year, so I was like getting to like craft my life after college and like think more about that. It felt like a lot of things that were like ending and I got to feel a sense of freedom and responsibility I had never felt before with my future. And yeah, like I think that was the year I felt the most like on the precipice of something great. And I do think that even though college was fun, life after college was more fun. So, like, I made a lot of big decisions that year, and I think that those decisions, I don't regret those decisions, honestly, even though I guess I do regret majoring in journalism, but I don't regret anything I did with that situation, at least. So, Yeah.
What makes you say it was a mistake or something that you regret that you majored in journalism?
Like, I choose to generally think of my life as like, like you got to just make the most of it. You got to just keep playing the game. Life is a winding path. You can't like go back. But like, I was so intent on proving to myself I could be a writer. Um, I never like let myself deepen my knowledge and love of like other areas of life. And I do feel like it kind of strategically has screwed me over with trying to become legible to the job market now. A lot of people that went to school for journalism are kind of trapped in like the marketing like circuit or like, maybe run a successful Substack, but are really burnt out by the fact that like being a full-time writer when you're used to like a structured way of doing things is very difficult. Um, so I guess I like don't abstractly regret it because I do think it was a meaningful experience that brought me like a different perspective on like how America works and everything, but in a like material way, it was not the best thing to be taking on to leading up to where we are now in 2026, which is like, I don't know. Like I feel like I was really trained to think in a way that's not advantageous to like innovation, honestly. Which is what everyone cares about now with technology and AI and everything. Everything I've learned that feels advantageous to getting a job now, I learned through the network. Because building a strong network was something I already was really interested in doing, that journalism kind of helped me maybe with that ability. But like at the same time, I'm like, I'm financially not in like the best place in my life. And I do kind of wish I had way more like practical skills that, you know, I could have like thought about more in school. Like I should have like double majored, but oh well, like that's life.
Hmm. I'm under the impression there was a period of your life where you were like really immersed in the world of journalism and like really wanted to be a journalist, and that was like your top goal. Am I remembering that correctly?
Oh yeah, like
Hmm.
that is not like I'm not
Hmm.
refuting
Sure,
that.
sure,
I'm
sure, sure. When you were in that period, what was that like? Like, how did you view journalism at the time? How did you view yourself? What was that like?
mm, yeah, I mean like I'm saying I regret it now because I've
Hmm.
been
Yes, yes.
processing my emotions about that, but like you
Hmm.
can only feel that strongly about like I'm talking about it from the pragmatic standpoint of like um I regret it because it was not a really good choice for the fact that I really feel like I'm behind in life in some ways now, like financially. Um, like genuinely that is a regret. But like on like a spiritual level, like what have I learned about like life through the fact that like journalism was so meaningful and I was like so devoted to it at the time. Like that was like really like, important. Like I think like there's a part of me that like really like I think the chip on my shoulder that like was like I have something to prove, yada yada. Journalism really stoked that. Like I was told in school, like all through school, honestly, that I was an amazing writer. And I think that my ego clung on to that because I really couldn't see the range I could have. So like in my mind, I was like, I would be throwing away the only thing I had value for, which was being a good writer. Again, this is like the only thing I'd never felt incapable of improving. Like, I just like took like every like criticism I got, I like integrated so well. It was like the one thing that I was like passionate about and also really good at. Like in school, like people thought I was gonna get like recruited for like the Washington Post or like whatever. Um, and then like that just did not happen. And like I really had this like idea of myself that I was going to become someone great and that was like the replacement for like not being able to like have friends or like feel love. And instead I was going to be like the voice of a generation and write like the next great American novel, like all these like delusions of grandeur. And also, yeah, like when you're a journalist and like you're like, oh my God, if I don't report this, then like democracy will be like shaken, da da da. Like you like they really propagandize these like really young idealistic people. They're like Woodward and Bernstein are the reason that American ideals were saved and preserved because Nixon, the crook, like they would just like tell all these like stories of journalists doing like the most. And like to be fair, like journalists are like very fucking important. Like they're like overseas, like at the scene of whatever, like they're like letting people know what's going on. Like it's not to say that it's not a very noble profession in a lot of ways, but also at the same time, like things are like changing and like in school I didn't really necessarily see a focus on like innovation, like kind of, but I think the frameworks for how to think about innovation were not strong at all. They were just like, oh, looks like we're like pivoting to short form video, so hopefully you do well in your video courses or whatever. Or like they're like audience engagement matters and here's what to do. Like I don't know, there's just like this kind of push-pull of like how useful was that degree? I mean, I certainly learned how to write very fast and I learned how to like gather multiple perspectives, do fact checking, research, all this stuff. And I got like a high off of it, honestly, because it's just like if you feel like you're important the whole time, then like that can like take you so far, honestly. And I also got to meet so many cool people and like I lived in like so many random places in the Midwest, like Grand Forks, North Dakota. Like I can safely say I've been to a buffalo farm. I've covered like two elections. I covered the school shooting and like I like did all these things. And like it made me feel like my life had like whimsy and adventure that like I guess has not stopped, but I feel like I was, bred for this stuff in a sense. But I was really, really obsessed with the idea of becoming famous, like really. I feel like I wanted to like be like Hunter S. Thompson and like write all these like profiles and like things. And yeah, it's kind of cringe how much I talk about it because I feel like on some level I'm like it's so interesting because like I think like especially like on the internet people like talk about like writers as like people that are currently writing. But like, like if you go back a decade, the idea of being a writer with a capital W was like so like a clout kind of thing. It was like a status thing. And it's still a status thing now, but it's so different now. Like now it's all like practical tips and like practical like philosophy, but like on some level, like the people that are like doing amazing long form pieces and like, cultural criticism that's like actually like well like research and humanities focused. I feel like that genre of writer used to be more dominant, and then as technology has started to dominate more of the main discourse over the last 10 years, it's shifted, especially with Substack. So I think overall, like the kind of writer I like really, really overly romanticized being is not like the Substack newsletter writer that I feel like I'm supposed to become if I want to like care about writing now. And it's hard to divorce my associations with like a medium, you know? So yeah, I think I'm having to deal with like a changing vision for like what my life's supposed to be that's been kind of in play for the last few years.
Hmm. Can you tell me how you started to get interested in things like tarot and MBTI and astrology and all of these things that you've learned over the years?
Mhm. Yeah, so in college, um, so I went to school in Missouri, and my college campus was an hour from Ferguson, which is where the shooting of Michael Brown in 2014 was. And then Black Lives Matter became like like a topic of discussion around the nation. And I was like pretty involved in like school like activism at the time. And I just noticed like a lot of my classmates were like super depressed. And one day I just decided to pick up a tarot deck and I had a friend who was into it as well. And I started giving people tarot readings. Like it was easy for me to learn the frameworks. I just saw it like very formulaically. And I just got really good at like channeling basically. And I was also super into astrology and Myers-Briggs. Or not like the test Myers-Briggs, but like the system that's based on, because the friend who was also into it like had learned it really well. And from that, I like got like super into it as well because I felt like it was a way to like actually understand the individual differences of people and see them as like archetypes. Because like I understood frameworks such as like how like race impacts like how people see the world and how you grow up. Like obviously I'm gonna like have a different nervous system as an Asian American with Asian immigrant parents than like someone who like their parents are white and have lived here for like, 5 generations in the same town. So like they're used to American culture. So like at the time, I felt like understanding other people was like my biggest priority. And the biggest way to get better at like writing as a journalist was honestly to understand the inner worlds of people. And these frameworks made it easier for me to actually get to know other people in a sense and right away. Like I started being able to kind of like type and understand, like not to like put people in a box, but to like have a lens through which I could see them correctly in their shape and their texture. And that was really vital in like a high tension time because after the shooting of Michael Brown and various other like racist acts on campus, because our first black student body president got elected and he like was receiving death threats and like all these things. So like a lot of people were just like living in fear and it was like a very tumultuous time. Like it was very different than like the typical things you expect to go on a college campus. Like instead of like worrying about grades and like who's dating who, we were like thinking about like racial issues and all these things. And like it just like gave me perspective to like the world out there is like so crazy and spiritual meaning is still something that people care about. Like and it's going to continue being relevant. And at this point, I wasn't even Christian anymore, but I still knew like I had like a thirst for like spiritual meaning. So I started learning these frameworks to kind of be able to connect with different people. And it transcended my college campus and also helped me with sources when I was like on the road for journalism and all these things. So honestly, I guess if it wasn't for journalism, I probably wouldn't have been as interested in this stuff because it was directly applicable to making my work better and making my storytelling ability and also just like giving me a roadmap for like conflict when I was like getting headaches from like, like dealing with people being annoying. I could like turn to these frameworks for like growth edge maps for myself even and also other people. I mean, not to be like you should be improving blah blah blah, but more like I know like what the framework is so I can like feel my way around someone's energy way better.
Can you give some specifics of how these things helped with like journalism and other things you were facing at that point in your life?
I mean, uh like I feel like it's really hard for me to give an example without going to the whole system. But on a base level, it's like if someone's using like a cognitive function that's like different than mine, like I don't know, like I'm like an introverted feeler in like the Myers-Briggs system. And if someone's like an extroverted feeler, like I can like feel the archetype of like the shape of how that energy affects my energy much more. It's kind of like when people like can see colors when they hear musical notes or something. And if they like walked around, they always heard the same like color red. They'd be like, oh, that's because blah blah blah. Like it just like it would just help me with like if someone's like getting triggered, I have like a source code to like guess why. And I can like kind of like figure out how to like deal with the conflict, which helped a lot because like I was like covering rallies with Trump supporters and I could feel the archetype of like what their personality was and know how to not step on them, but also know how to come back from conflict if we had it. And in a larger sense, that's like how I deal with stuff now is like when people are triggered or having conflict, or even if like something's going well, I can like understand the depth and shape of it from understanding and typing them. Obviously, like you don't always know someone's exact type, but you can get in the ballpark more because it has to kind of like live and breathe with you. It's yeah, like it's all about like being able to like attune to like the metaphysics of the moment.
Hmm. Hmm. How has your relationship with God changed over the years?
Whew. Um, yeah, so I grew up Christian and like I was saying, I used to be like, if I don't have anyone, I have Jesus. Turn up. And like yeah, I got into tarot and honestly, I was getting like spiritual visions and making predictions and people were like, "Wow, you're so good at this." And I'm like, "Cool." I don't like asking people for money for this thing. And like on some level, like I'm better with it now, but like I feel like God should be free. Like God and like the experience of like spirituality should not have to, you know, bow to capitalism and here we are. Um, I think my core understanding of God as like a loving and fair entity that brings me comfort has not changed at all. Like I feel like actually the more suffering I've gone through, the more I believed that God is real and is with me. Because every time I've centered God in my actions, things have just worked out for me really beautifully. Like never in the way that I'm like assuming, but always in the way that like makes sense to me on a spiritual level. And yeah, I've like lost a lot of relationships over the years and lost a lot of like kind of like foundational stability. Like I'd say like my life has just seen so many ups and downs, and I've just had to like rebuild my sense of identity so many times. But as my mom says, you are God's favorite fool. Like your naivete is actually quite holy or whatever. Which is funny because like I'm really cynical a lot of ways, but I feel like at the same time I'm also like I don't think I'm naive, but I have a very like pure heart. Like people joke that I'm extremely gullible. Like if you tell me anything, I'll just assume you're telling the truth at all times. And I think it's made it so I always want to see the best in people. But I think believing in God made me trust the God inside me as well and made me discerning. So I feel like I've developed a more mature conception of what God's nature is like and what I should or shouldn't be doing with my life. But yeah, I feel like I've continued to feel like if I don't have anyone, I have God is like the recurring theme of my life. And I would feel I would say I feel like a renewed urge to like be a disciple and like devote myself to like God and like helping people understand like their own spirituality. And I really wasn't thinking that way for like a long time. Like after I left the church, like when I was in college, because I like, graduated high school and I was like, yeah, I don't really care about like people were encouraging me to be a minister back then, but I was like, I don't really need to do that, so whatever. I'm gonna go and do my own thing. But now I feel called to like be a spiritual leader. It's very different like spiritual coach or like spiritual counselor. It's like I feel called to like help people sense make in this day and age when like there's a lot more to be afraid of and everything. So yeah, I mean, I feel like I guess I'm more willing now to let God speak to me more directly in like how I orient my life. And for many years, I was trying to like acquire like earthly skills, like being able to like logically reason and communicate with people and being able to like make sense of like events happening in my life from a secular perspective. Because I don't really like, I would say like I've thrown religion out pretty much altogether since I was like 18, but I do have a really strong ethical and spiritual framework for how I conceive of these things. So, yeah, but it's always centered God.
What was your more naive conception of God, and what's your more mature, refined conception or relation with God?
I guess I used to think that like if I prayed hard enough, God would give me things, like material things, and this is definitely not true. And I think the wiser conception is that if you ask for wisdom, God will give it to you. You just have to know how to spot it, which requires wisdom. Um, so I've learned how to basically separate the abstract part of like God's goodwill from what I think it should look like or something. So basically, I have a more unbiased relationship to what God is or isn't.
Hmm. How would you characterize what wisdom is?
Um, Insight and peace. Insight, peace, patience, non-judgmentalness, and searing truth.
Hmm. Hmm. You talked about your conception of your own life and what you're here to do changing, and even this being like a period of a lot of understanding of who you are and what you're here to do. How do you currently understand what your work in the world is and what you're here to do?
Oh, God. Well, I feel called to be a pastor, like a secular pastor. And I don't feel called to start a church per se, but I do feel called to help other people see themselves as a congregation. And the dicey thing is that I think we are not short on individual enlightenment opportunities, but we are very short on like communal meaning making, just different than sense making. Because people think about the collective, they don't think about the communal space, which is like, I don't think people know how to coexist well with each other and be raw and authentic with each other. Because when you're trying to be authentic, but in a way that like doesn't center God, then it's gonna center like yourself, honestly. And I guess I started to see more like what happens when people don't organize themselves around one central meaning. They do this actually kind of naturally though, unconsciously. Like that's how like friend groups sustain for a period. You think you're on the same page with your values and whatnot. But there's no accountability structure. So if you deviate from your values and like screw over a bunch of people, if you're not in jail, then I don't know, you just like go and start over somewhere. So yeah, I would say my current spiritual calling is to help people with the loneliness epidemic, but like find a way to like bring people together. And I think that is actually a pastor's main job. They're here to tend to the, the sheep, so to speak. But at the same time, my dream is to actually have multiple people become pastors. So it starts with me, but the congregation ends up becoming a bunch of people actually preaching and giving stories and testimonials of like what meaning is to them. And I actually think having a whole squad of pastors or like having everyone see themselves as a pastoral figure who is helping the sheep, the herd of sheep, which is all of us, that is like the actual thing I want this to all be organized around. Um, I guess like what I'm trying to say is I feel like keeping God inside like a church or a religious structure, institution, or like something you experience when you go out in nature and just doesn't come home with you or is only on a meditation retreat when you have like a moment of insight. That's like not enough for me. It's not enough for most people. I want to actually make people be able to experience God in the day-to-day moments, which is not just like having magical whimsy. It's not just like, oh, like I got to romanticize my life for a second, the coffee. I'm so grateful for my life. And then it just goes away the next day because you don't know how to like have that continue into your catch-up brunches with your friends and blah, blah, blah. Like, how do you have it so every time someone helps you, you both experience God more and you both feel a reflection of God, like among you? So, really, my goal for the next, 10 years, because I'm 31, but Jesus didn't start his ministry until he was 33. So, I have like 2 more years to get a head start. Really, I want other people to see themselves as God embodied. And that's the thing. Like they say there's the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, and I'm Holy Spirit maxing. And I think every single spiritual arrangement I've been in has involved hierarchy. Like people are always like, Crystal, you're so spiritually enlightened, or like, oh, like your tarot reading was so powerful, just to channel, oh my God, your sermon was so good. And I'm like, that's cool and all, but like you could do this too. And people are like, no, we can't. I'm like, okay, maybe you couldn't do it as fast as me. But I do want other people to feel like empowered in becoming spiritual catalysts because I believe that's like all of us. It doesn't have to be like a Christian spiritual catalyst, but yeah, I'm really passionate about people having something to live for outside of their like 9 to 5. And I see my friends and I love my partner and then I lie in bed and I'm like, is that all there is? And if life can't feel like an adventure, that's probably because God's missing. Because when God's alive, everything feels like an adventure. So, I don't know.
How did you start to feel called to being a pastor?
Um, Actually, it was with my friend Matt Bunday. and our other friend Anansi. Um, well, yeah, I wouldn't say they created that sense in me, but they started making me think more critically because I was like emo maxing the other day, like a month ago, and then Matt Bundy was like saying about like jealousy and envy of like other people's material success. He's like, you should think about the game you're optimizing for, which made me be like, wait, what game am I optimizing for? So I thought about that. And literally minutes later, I was sitting at like the table at like Fractal Tech, and Anansi comes over to me, and I'm like complaining about like, I don't really know what my life is, or da da da. And he was like, well, what do you yearn for? Like, what do you like just savor, or what do you salivate over? What you want to, what do you desire? And I was just like, I couldn't even say things like a job or a boyfriend or like something specific. And I was like, I desire to know God. And that was like such a weird answer for me to just like spontaneously come out of my mouth. But then it made me synthesize what I just been talking about to Matt and how I was like, wait, the game I've been optimizing for my whole life has been spiritual purity and spiritual like livelihood. Because I was thinking about how, I do regret on a material level doing journalism, but like I said, on a spiritual level, I don't. It's because journalism made me acquire so much spiritual wealth because every single day I was out there talking to people, I would just experience God in a whole new way because I was getting sent on adventures and quests, and every day felt like an anime episode of like Monster of the Day and like all these things. It was such an exciting way to live. Like I just felt like I had the chance to make a new friend all the time. I had a chance to get a deep lesson out of other people. And when I realized that like I had refused to take jobs that had actually like, possibly would be a good fit on some level, but the thing that would be stopping me was always like, is it gonna like make me able to like leave spaciousness for me to do the work I feel compelled to do, which apparently has been ministering to other people. Because, like, I have a lot of friends here in New York and all over the country and the world. But the thing that, like, helps me bring people together is honestly that every one of us inside feels a yearning and a fire for, like, connection, which to me is, like, yearning to be close to God in a way. Like we see God in each other when we love and when we do things together and go through things together. And like I was just like, wow, like I guess like my entire life has felt like it's been ministry, but the ministry is secular. Like when I drop everything for my friends to be there for them, that is because I feel like called to by God. And a long time ago when I was a kid and I was really suicidal, I was like, hey, if you take away this like death-like feeling I always have, where like my life doesn't mean anything. If you just give me the will to live, I will do whatever it takes to pay you back, God. Like I will do that. Like I made this deal when I was like 9 or 10. I remember it because then I swore, and again, it felt like my entire childhood felt like a psychedelic trip for some reason. Like I was constantly hearing voices telling me it would be all right when I was like at my darkest like moments, and I'd be like, I don't know if I'm imagining that, but I'm just gonna pretend it's a useful fiction, whatever. And I would just hear a voice just like saying, speaking and whispering to me, like, it gets better, don't give up. And you're gonna do like great things one day and like all this stuff. So I had all these like little delusions of grandeur like injected into me or something. And again, like it wasn't necessarily like my parents were like feeding this to me, but I was just really confident that like if I'm put on this earth like any longer than like, fucking like the 13 years. Because like I remember when I was 13, I really was considering committing suicide, like very seriously. But I went back to that deal. And every time I would like go back to that moment, I like tried to like make a deal with God. I would feel renewed like rigor and like desire to like fight for my life and like fight for like whatever the fuck my purpose was. So yeah, like I just felt like life is about building connection and like doing ministry. And it doesn't have to make sense to people. And I think that for a long time I was caught in this idea that I have to prove that I make sense to people, to these rationality maxers on Twitter and my parents who don't understand what the fuck my problem is and why I refuse to like take a tech job. And I'm like, so many people I know are like living disillusioned, and even if they have like the finances and the perfect partner, all these things, they're so troubled. And like I don't want to be in a situation where I feel troubled because I haven't made room in my life for like spiritual meaning. On the other hand, it's probably impractical to like, lean so heavily into that side that now you're kind of low-key broke at like age 31. That is not my proudest moment. But I can certainly say that like I think trying to like prioritize the connections of my mental health and healing over the past few years and like feeling God's impact and finger in my life way more has made me realize that that deal never expired and that I really want to bring like spiritual meaning to other people and like help them reframe their perspectives. And I don't know, I guess I feel more and more grateful that like every single time I've like hit rock bottom in the last like 10 years, I've prayed and instantly felt relief or like something happens to me. Like every single time to where I just started praying a lot more over the last few months. And I think it was talking to Matthew and Anansi that actually made me realize what I'd been doing. Because I was too in my life to like see the thing that was happening. So I guess like, yeah, I guess I feel like I'm supposed to do this because like, why else has my life turned out the way it has?
What does it mean to you to center God in your life?
I think always being curious about the nature of like a higher power. Um, that's actually a kind of a hard question because it feels very intuitive. I feel like I always have to leave room for contradiction and leave room for paradox. And within the paradox, I find the tension of like life and like God. Like a lot of it is honestly having friends who keep me accountable to like my own bullshit, who like I've tried to set up my life to where I have a lot of friends who refuse to let me live in my copes and my delusions. I became self-aware because I was like, I have like less of an awareness of self naturally, I feel like. So I'm just gonna like vibe vibe code a network of people to help me with that. And I guess because I'm really sincere, and that's like probably my one competitive advantage is I am childlike in my weird little innocence and like affect. I will just double down on trying to learn lessons like a child and try to go through life like a child. Like a child that like, isn't a child. Like I don't want to be immature, but I want to like understand and like achieve maximal enlightenment in this way. So, yeah.
Hmm. How would you characterize what secular, being a secular pastor means to you?
Um, I guess the main thing that I care about is like giving my sermons, which normally will cite like psychoanalytical or philosophical texts. And the structure of it is it's like a parabolistic way of storytelling with a point. So I guess I want the platform to be able to like synthesize all these like great thinkers from yesteryear or also like new forms of philosophical thought and like make them make sense to people and have them have something to take with them when they're going through like a garden variety sort of problem in life. So I guess, and then like have, people that know each other through knowing me meet each other and be able to like form like small support groups or whatever. So I guess I care about those aspects of like having a pastor in your community. It doesn't have to be hierarchical. It's more like I care the most about the synthesis, which I think is a pastor's best trait, is they can synthesize. Like the best pastors can like take one passage in the Bible and like pick out every single theme and like talk about it broadly, or they can have one theme and have like seven different passages from like all over the Bible. So like in a similar way, I want to draw from like different frameworks and different like things I've seen and just like go really deep into them and like make them make sense. Someone was like, "Oh, so you're like a motivational speaker, but like with Jesus." I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I guess." But I mean, I'm not like necessarily, invoking Jesus literally, but yeah, it is like the medium. it is like the impact is just not, there's just no like unifying framework, I guess, because the framework is the fact that it's like, yeah, it's a synthesis of all these different frameworks that I've seen over the years.
Hmm. And what's your relationship with writing now?
God. Um, I feel very free when I get to write, and it feels like the writing itself is enough. But I feel very trapped when I start worrying about what the writing should be getting me. And that's why it's been hard to feel incentivized to monetize my writing because that feels like it cramps the very nature of it. Like you used to be able to like write a magazine piece and get paid like $2 a word. Now you get paid like maybe 25 cents a word if you're even lucky. So it's depressing, but I feel like I'm trying to recover my writing voice this year. I've started writing more microfiction on Twitter and like I'm back on, the horse. Like I'm back in like the flow of like trying to like make things happen with my words, trying to like paint pictures. Because I was thinking of it like for so long, I've used writing to like convey the textures of my mind and the thoughts I'm having, like in a very like straightforward way, like a commentary based way. But I also love writing where I'm sketching out the contours of like my inner world, and it feels more like drawing and artistic than like let me explain the psychoanalytic concept and how it applies or da da. So like, yeah. I think that sermons are the intersection of my spiritual interests and my interest in writing because writing a really good sermon is like so intoxicating and rewarding for me.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, we've covered a lot of territory and you've very kindly answered my questions. Is there anything you'd like to talk more about or dive more deeply into?
Ooh, um, no, I think I'm good for now, actually.
Hmm. Well, thank you so much for sharing your life and your heart. And I feel inspired to connect more deeply with God. And I'm excited for your pastoral career and your writing. And I'm really grateful to be friends also. So this is a way that I like to get to know more about my friends and see them from a deeper level and also share their vow and their gift with the world. So thank you for taking the
Yeah,
time.
thank you so
Mm.
much for the chance to talk about all this.
Mm.
Mhm.